A very good evening. I'm Aditi Lamba, welcoming you all to the Monday night episode of Vision of Asia. Kicking off the week, we bring you tonight some prime personalities motivating several South Asian voices across the nation. We're attempting here to get all perspective on issues impacting members of our community, especially in public policy, politics, and advocacy. This summer, South Asians are surely celebrating their rich heritage and ethnic contributions to the diversity of this country, while also becoming the voice for minorities and their interests. We're calling out all advocates, influencers, political advisors, and other personalities to come share your thoughts and opinions on the growing and changing South Asian diaspora. We look forward to hearing more on the responsibilities as well as the vision for South Asians in 2019. Don't forget our email is events@itvgold.com. Let's now begin Monday night South Asian news segment with lots of insights and messages for betterment and hope. Let's begin with the headlines. SAALT denounces ICE raids and family separation featuring Lakshmi Sridaran on Skype. Indian Americans on upcoming 73rd Independence Day of India in New Jersey. Chaya CDC sustaining homes, strengthening communities featuring Annetta Seecharran. This and a lot more right after a show break. Save this in Vision of Asia, a voice of the community. We'll be right back. Welcome back. I'm Aditi Lamba and this is Vision of Asia, South Asian news segment. Beginning the show tonight, we have an exclusive conversation on Queens-based South Asian nonprofit Chaya Community Development Corporation. Chaya's Executive Director Annetta Seecharran sat down with us recently at our studio, bringing much knowledge on prevalent issues impacting the lives of South Asians and Indo-Caribbeans across New York, especially the low-income, unserved individuals. Chaya has been mobilizing and organizing on housing and economic sustainability for immigrants, hence impacting a range of social outcomes, including education, employment, civic participation, community pride, and mental health and well-being. Let's take a look at our exclusive conversation with the Executive Director Annetta Seecharran on Chaya's works and resources, as well as the advocacy with the ongoing housing displacement issue in Queens, New York. Let's take a look. So just, starting this interview off, tell me a little bit about why Chaya does the work it does. And before I go into this mission statement that I really want to elaborate for you, your relation with Chaya, how has that been?
So I have the pleasure of serving as the Executive Director of Chaya,
right.
And I've been the Executive Director for the last 3 years.
Wow.
Previously, I served on the board, but however, I've known Chaya from the very beginning. So Chaya is the only South Asian Community Development Corporation in
right.
the United States.
Oh, wow.
Which is something I think when we first got started, we were really proud of, but today, given the scale of the need of our community,
right.
not just here in New York City in the tri-state area, but across the country, there ought to be many more Chayas. So Chaya was founded as a housing organization
right.
to address the housing needs of the low to moderate income members of our community, and that was 20 years ago,
right.
which is quite visionary.
Definitely.
For back then. We've continued to grow over the years, and today our mission is to build power, housing stability, and the economic well-being of our community.
Right.
When we think of South Asians, we typically think of, a successful community that's filled with doctors, lawyers, and engineers.
Correct. Our stereotype image everywhere across the globe.
Exactly. And so, however, the reality is that we've estimated in different parts of the community, the poverty rate is up to 30%.
Oh, wow.
In different parts of the community.
Our community here, South Asians here.
Within New York City.
Within New York.
Within New York City.
Oh, wow.
And these are estimates that we've pulled from the American Community Survey. One of the challenges we face is that our community is not very well documented. We don't know the numbers, and I'll talk later about why the census is a really important matter as it relates to this issue. However, we do know that there are large numbers based on existing surveys and data
right.
that are struggling economically, struggling to remain in residents of the city in their current housing situation because of skyrocketing housing prices.
Right.
Additionally, members of our community struggle with immigration issues, whether it's being undocumented or figuring out how to become a citizen. They may be documented, but they don't have the resources, or they don't have enough of a grasp on the English language to be able to pass the citizenship test. There's a whole host of immigration-related issues. And so as a community development corporation, we have a wonderful and holistic broad mandate to address the root cause of some of these issues that get in the way of our community's ability to prosper or to live to realize their fullest potentials here.
So we're bringing this basic demographics point to our viewers because we have brought Chaya here primarily to discuss what's happening with the housing crisis and some other very pertinent immigrant-related issues that our audiences should know about. And it's very important to know how diverse Queens is because Queens is represented by a variety of South Asian and Indo-Caribbean communities. And I'm sure, Annetta, you would agree with that. So, taking off of that, I know that's a huge key issue for Chaya CDC this year, but also just generally in New York City, it's a huge issue. I would like for you to give us some insight on it.
So you mentioned the housing crisis, and so that remains and continues to be one of a leading issue impacting our communities, and one that Chaya is continuing to work on, not just in terms of direct service, but in terms of the policy work that we are doing, such as leading the basement legalization campaign. I want to move now to talking about something that is facing us today, right here as we speak, and which is the immigration issue and the ICE raids that has our communities in absolute fear and terror. And I would argue that it is actually truly terrorizing our community, where folks are unable to function and go about their everyday lives. It's creating an incredible degree of fear and uncertainty, and it feels like a human rights violation, and it's absolutely inhumane. So this is something obviously Chaya, as an immigrant serving organization, is of tremendous concern to us. So the first thing I want to say is go to Chaya CDC, to our website, and you will find there a page with all of the resources and information you need in a variety of South Asian languages. At a very basic level, if an arrest, there cannot be an arrest unless there is a warrant, a legal warrant. And we have information available for community members to show folks what a warrant, what a correct and legal warrant looks like. Because in the past, ICE has used fake documentation or just DHS information to confuse people, and those are legal warrants. So at a very basic level, if there's a knock on your door, you don't need to open your door, at a very basic level. But I want to encourage folks to go to our website, and you have all the resources and information that you need. If you hear of an arrest, please call the Immigrant Defense Project, or you could always go to Chaya. Chaya, we are here to help. We are a resource to you. If you don't know what to do, you can always go to Chaya.
This year, India celebrates its 73rd Independence Day in August, one of the most celebrated and sought-after national Indian occasions, paying homage to the long fight for Indian independence and freedom with leaders against the British rule in India. Rich tributes are paid to freedom fighters such as Gandhi, Nehru, Tilak, Bhagat Singh, Sarojini Naidu, amongst others, who fought selflessly for the freedom of the country, sacrificed their lives to free motherland India. Quite a symbol of Indian patriotism, the day's activities annually consist of a variety of parades, festivals, speech addresses, and much more, gathering together the great global Indian community. In its tradition, the country genuinely honors all aspects of our vibrant cultural heritage, and for many, each Independence Day of India represents a progressed and successful India, a nation that has truly become a global player in its 72 years of being free. We have tonight some comments coming in from the Indian community of New Jersey who showcase much excitement and gratitude for the upcoming Indian Independence Day this August.
Independence in India was achieved after sacrifice of millions of lives, specifically after the partition of the country. Every leader, all the people who have shown us the way to live our life, everybody came with good intentions, but things started changing after the independence of the country. It takes a long time in the process of evolution or in the life of any country, and all of us have a very important role. Each individual, each life is so precious, and everyone has a very important role to play by conducting ourselves properly, by doing our duties properly. No government can succeed or improve the quality of life or the life of its people unless each one of us do our duties and jobs properly. When I look back at Delhi of today, it is nothing but pollution, corruption everywhere, but we try to blame the governments, we try to blame other people. We have a very short life to live. If each one of us realizes this and does our duty or play our part properly and conduct ourselves properly, we will be able to govern ourselves properly. This is the only time in history now that we have majority in the parliament, and we have to support government's policies and ensure that we do not lack in our duty to bring prosperity, happiness and well-being for everyone.
We have to we celebrate this Independence Day to remember those who sacrificed their lives to get the Indians' independence. Now, having said that, we used to be like celebrating India's Independence Day by hosting the flag of this Indian flag, and I used to go to my school when I was a child studying in the school. We used to unfurl the flag, then we used to distribute the sweets, and in fact I was also celebrating the India's Independence Day in my workplaces at different places in India, and we used to remember those warriors of the independence like Mahatma Gandhi, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, and all leaders who have done tremendous work to get the independence from the Britishers in 1947. And the most important thing is that we have to cherish not only those memories, but we have to give this message to our kids who are following us, that how it was hard to get the independence and what we have done, so that we have to not only preserve the freedom, but we should do everything possible to preserve the freedom and to celebrate the Independence Day.
And I remember as a student leader, as a community activist in back home, while I was a student leader and I was a community activist in my area. We remember when this part of the world in the United States of America every year celebrate Independence Day and a flag hosting ceremony very proudly, with organizing a large gathering, and many local, county, state and federal elected officials participate in United States of America, and with very discipline and with very pride we celebrate our independence. I must congratulate to the ITV Gold and he is publisher and owner Dr. Sudhir Parikh for taking such a special interest on this occasion and making awareness about what is the Independence Day, why we should celebrate, how we were celebrating when we were growing up.
It's time for the show break. Stay with us in Vision of Asia. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You are tuned to Vision of Asia, bringing you prime South Asian highlights from all across. We now have more on the recent conversation with SAALT's interim co-executive director, Lakshmi Sridaran, who spoke to us via Skype from Washington, D.C. SAALT, which stands for South Asian Americans Leading Together, has been one of the most influential and prominent national nonprofits that have truly empowered and helped in producing a mobilized voice for protecting immigrant rights and ensuring racial justice for all. SAALT currently is denouncing the ongoing Trump administration's enforced ICE raids across the nation, asking for protection of immigrant communities in the country, seeking to redirect ICE funding into reunifying families and closing detention centers. In our conversation, Lakshmi spoke full-heartedly, addressing the increase of fear, hate, and oppression in affecting communities, and she also addressed the lack of morality in targeting children, youth, and families in order to further criminalize the immigrant communities. She also spoke on the recent passing of the Dream and Promise Act. Let's take a look. So the national advocacies such as SAALT are right now taking a step to just educate and have these immigrants know their rights, as well as also know how to seek legal help. I would sort of love for you to sort of elaborate on all the other resources available at SAALT for these immigrant communities while they're looking for all these resources.
Absolutely. So we have many resources on our website. We have worked with our partners at Immigrant Defense Project, at United We Dream, and so many other national immigrant justice organizations to be able to utilize the resources they've already created, that if ICE comes to your door and you know you don't have to answer unless they actually have a warrant, a judicial warrant, and that is that's difficult to decipher in a moment where your door is being banged on and you have to make a quick decision. But these are things that we want to practice and run through tonight at the training to make sure that people feel comfortable exercising their rights. And so what we've done is worked to do our best to try to get as many resources in language. So Hindi, Urdu, Bangla, Punjabi, these are some of the languages that we're focused on making sure resources are available in. And so at our website, SAALT.org, we actually have a link to these resources in different languages.
How much legal aid help do you think an organization such as SAALT would require right now? My question perhaps is for, all these lawyers from our own community that exist around us and all the other, very passionate advocates, what sort of appeal that you would like to say to them on behalf of SAALT, and how much help do you think is really required? Because I think they are going to be a huge, massive force for these immigrants, correct?
Yes, absolutely. I think there's a lot of willingness for people to support right now, and I think it is really going to take every single person. And we are open to taking as many volunteers as possible, and also creating a long-term network of advocates from this outpouring of support that we've received here in the local Washington, D.C. area, because we know that there are the Know Your Rights resources, which are really useful right when the raids and the arrests are happening. But then there's the long-term legal support that's going to be needed when these, the administration is saying they're targeting 2,000 people. So when, 2,000 plus people are getting arrested and detained, there are going to be really long-term legal needs here. And so part of our effort also is to create a long-term South Asian rapid response legal network so that we're able to get attorneys who are culturally competent and can provide, ideally, in language assistance as well to be able to move people through their cases.
Just on this topic of finding resources for particularly the South Asian immigrant population, I'm reminded of 2 years ago when SAALT held one of their conventions, and we had just spoken to Ravi Raghveer through you about the initial incidents of what was happening towards immigrant communities post-2016. Now in 2019, we're talking about big issues that are really in the forefront. We're talking about separation of families that we've seen. We're talking about immigrants dying on the borders. We're talking about our own communities of South Asians that have increased in numbers. Reflecting upon the change in the last few years, Lakshmi, what is your comment on what has happened towards these undocumented immigrant communities, especially when you're talking about South Asians? Could you reflect on how there has been actually an increase in number, and that's why perhaps a lot of us should be worried and support each other?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for that question. I do think that in the last 2 years, what this administration has done is actually really fulfill its promise. And so in some ways, it's not surprising that we're seeing, I'll share that over the last 3 years, the number of South Asians, or I should say Indians, apprehended at the border has tripled. And, we're just seeing a huge increase in the number of people who are both being apprehended at the border and also in the interior, and that's specifically in our South Asian community. And we do need better data on more than just Indian Americans, but that's what we have right now. And the number of undocumented Indian immigrants is over 600,000. And so we are just seeing, this pool of people who are being criminalized and eventually deported just grow in our communities. And so it's really important that in the South Asian community we care about these issues. And that's also why we think it's really important for employers, for the public, for everybody in our community to be prepared, because that's all we have. We have each other, we have our communities, and we really need to strengthen our networks to protect ourselves now.
I have to ask you, when you are talking about the greater South Asian population, Lakshmi, are there certain communities in the South Asian diaspora that you think are currently being targeted more, or you've just seen more numbers in a certain part of the South Asian communities?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that's a level of data we don't necessarily have. Based on what we've seen an increase in the number of people seeking asylum from Punjab in India, and we've also seen an increase in people seeking asylum who are from Bangladesh. And so that's kind of what we know, at least with the people who are being detained at border facilities. And then we do know that the number of Indians and Pakistanis who have been arrested in the interior has been over 2,000 in just the last year alone.
I think the strength in mobilization really works. I really hope, even with this upcoming issue that we're talking about, that SAALT and other coalitions also mobilize. Thank you so much for being with us here on the show, Lakshmi. I would love for you to give one last comment to all our viewers on behalf of SAALT and also on behalf of what is happening in this government, and any comments you would even like to give to the government itself.
Yeah, I think our government, there's so much to say there. I think that it's absolutely atrocious and unacceptable what they're doing to our communities, and this is across communities of color. It's absolutely unacceptable. And I think the message to them is that we are going to keep fighting this effort, and we will do everything that we can to stop both their policies and both their enforcement. And to our community, I really am grateful for the amount of support that we've received in the last year, as we've really been building out our body of work on immigrant detention and asylum seekers and just immigration enforcement in general, and making sure that there is just a lot more awareness about this in the South Asian community. And I just encourage those within our community to really understand that that this is a very, very significant issue in our community, and something that unfortunately will probably continue to grow as our community grows and as more and more people are coming from South Asia who are facing these circumstances, and to be really supportive and understand that this is part of a broad spectrum of immigrant justice work that we should all be engaged in.
This wraps up our show for the night. Remember to send us your suggestions to get your voices and organizations on our show. Email us on events@itvgold.com or follow us on Facebook @itvgold. Remember to also subscribe to our YouTube channel to watch many of our popular shows for free. Come back to us tomorrow at the same time. Thank you for joining us tonight. This is Vision of Asia, and I'm Aditi Lamba. Take care and be well.